Hey guys, in this video I want to continue painting my Rubik Marine. So if you joined me in the last video, we painted this guy gold, so it's now time to paint the blue parts blue. And for that we're going to be using Tamiya's Metallic Blue X13. Now this all came about shortly after the release of Space Marine 2 back in September 24, in which the game depicts 1,000 Suns with a metallic finish. Now for me, I've always painted my 1,000 Suns in a darker blue ever since I think the third or fourth edition Codex, which painted them in a dark regal blue at the time. Since then the 1,000 Suns were reimagined into like a teal colour, which is fine, you know, personal preference and all, but I've always stuck to that darker shade. So when I came across this paint in a local hobbycraft, it ticked two boxes for me. It's the same sort of shade and colour as I would normally paint my 1,000 Suns, but it has that metallic finish that I quite liked in the Space Marine 2 depiction of them. Right, now the reason this video is being put together is the Tamiya paints behave differently to Citadel colours. So if you, like me back in 24, pretty much only used Citadels, when you jump into using a Tamiya paint, there's a couple of things just to be mindful of, I suppose, because as I said, they do behave slightly differently. The first thing to get right is the base coat. Now I've done a bit of trial and error over the last few months to get the sort of right base coat, and this is what I've learned so far. Running down the right, you've got a single coat of the metallic blue, and then you've got on the left the different base tones that I've used and tested over the weeks and months. Right, so right at the bottom we've got an analog for the model as it is right now, the Uruk Armor Gold. Right, then above that we've got Cantor Blue, the grey primer just as it is, and then right at the top Temple Guard Blue.
Now the Auric armour, it might be difficult to see with the camera, but with the naked eye I can definitely pick up on it. The yellow tones of the gold combined with the blue of the top coat has left a slight green tint. You probably wouldn't notice it if it wasn't next to like these other blues above, but I can definitely see a slight green to it, so for that reason I discounted the gold as a base coat.
Now next to that we've got Cantor Blue. I think it's not a bad undercoat, and it might be something that you decide to carry on with if you are going to use this paint. All of this right hand side is quite streaky. The metallic blue has some streaks in it. The Cantor Blue does the best to hide it. You can see that there's a kind of a streak up the top here, but from most angles you can barely see it. But personally it's too dark. Right. Then we've got the grey undercoat. It's not a scenario for me that comes about that often, because I don't paint the blue over the grey. The gold is always done first, but it doesn't do a very good job of hiding those streaks for a single coat. Yeah, you can see here, you see the streaks running straight through, actually the top two colours. Right? And then right at the top you actually have my personal preference, the Temple Guard Blue. Yes, you can still see some of the streaks in it, but I think the lighter blue, well, it's better for the overall finish, I think, especially if you don't want to add another coat of metallic blue, which I'll get onto later on. The other thing to bear in mind is the time spent on the left-hand side. Right, so this gold, that's technically 3 coats to get where we are there. That's 1 coat of snakebite leather and 2 coats of auric armor. So this bottom square on the right, this is technically 4 coats to achieve this. That's 2 coats of Cantor, so this is 3 to achieve that. That's technically 1 straight over the primer, but this top one here is 2. It's 1 coat of the Temple Guard, 1 coat of the metallic blue. So for time spent and the finish, I think this one is the top pick. Right? Again, you don't want to rush your models. It's not a race to get them done, and there is a fine line between getting them done nicely but also not spending hours upon hours doing some mundane bits and pieces, especially if it's not a centerpiece model. This is rank and file infantry. Right.
So for that reason I go with Temple Guard Blue as a base to the metallic, and unsurprisingly the paints we're going to need in this video are Temple Guard Blue, The X13 Tamiya Metallic Blue, as already mentioned, and if you were with me in my last video about painting gold, and the Tamiya gold there, we'll need the Tamiya thinner, as these paints need a little bit more care than your average Citadel paint. Otherwise they go gunky and they kind of have the consistency of treacle if you're not careful. So
yeah, first step is to start undercoating the blue parts in the temple guard. My top tip for painting Chaos Marines is to do the trim colour first, right? I've always found it, ever since I did it this way, easier to fill in the panels second than try and do all the trimming second. I guess ultimately I'm less likely to make a mistake and get the blue on the gold than I was getting the gold over the blue, because obviously the trimming is thinner, right? But effectively for this, everything we need to be metallic blue, I've gone through and painted it this temple guard blue. So it's a bit time consuming, but the second stage of painting Chaos Marines would always be time consuming, whether you're doing the trim first or second. As I said, I've always found it easier to paint the interior parts afterwards than go in and paint all the trimming afterwards. Don't get me wrong, I still accidentally get blue over the gold, but far less mistakes this way around. Things like this can be a bit of a problem, just trying to get a little bit in, just like so. So yeah, not much to it. Just going to keep painting away until all of these parts are temple guard blue. Right, so there we have it. All the bits I want blue are blue, by and large. I'm sure I've missed something, always the case. So now we need to start using the metallic blue. Right, so this is where, probably should have mentioned it beforehand, but you might have seen it, a paint shaker is really useful. The Tamiya paints separate quite drastically. As you can see here, that does not look like the bottom of the pot does. We could do it back up again. Quite a difference. So all the metallic pigment sinks to the bottom, and then you've just got all like the binding agent rises to the top. So they do need a really, really good shake. I got away without this for the best part of a few months, but luckily I got this for Christmas, and it's been a real useful addition to the painting desk, that's for sure. The other thing to bear in mind, you can probably see at the top here, screw tops can be an absolute pain to open, right? It is imperative that you do not get paint around the threading of the pot itself. If you've been in the hobby a while and you remember the old Citadel screw tops, same sort of principle. If paint gets around that threading, it can get really, really gunked up to the point where I've used sort of pliers or nut crackers to kind of really open the lid. So again, just a tip, don't get paint around the threading. So we need to mix this. Let me just hang it on here. Obviously we want to start seeing the metallic pigment come through, so let's right, let's see if that's done the trick. Yeah, there you go. You can see the metallic flake back in it again. So as I said, you can do it by hand, but I find that this is just far easier. And again, it's kind of like just trying to judge it. This is quite thin now. Sometimes you do this, and you can just see by the movement it probably needs a couple of drops of thinner. In which case, I'll just use a pipette and just drop a couple of bits of thinner inside. Now this paint, right? It's a bit of a bit of an odd thing. It is thin and thick at the same time. It both dries quickly and takes ages to dry as well. So the consistency, it's really, really thin. It will apply really, really nicely, but then before you know it, it's suddenly thick. And that's because, as far as the brush is concerned, it dries quickly. So you've got to be, if you're painting a panel like this little bit here, I want to try and get everything covered as quick as possible so I don't leave brush marks in it, because as I said, on the model itself, as far as the brush is concerned, it dries very, very quickly. As far as you're concerned, it's not touch dry in ages. So basically what I'm saying is it dries quick enough to leave brush marks pretty quickly, but as far as handling the model, you want to leave it longer than you would a Citadel paint. So I just want to make sure that before it starts drying, I've covered all of the areas that I need to, because if you, like, you know, I did the middle of it first. If I was to drag the brush, I don't know what happened to the camera there. If I was to drag my brush straight through this again, right, I'm going to leave horrible brush marks. So yeah, not good. So with every sort of panel, as I said, we want to try and cover all of it as quick as possible while the paint is still wet. And then if need be, if you've got some really obvious teal streaks in it, when it's properly dry, go back over it again. Right, but you don't want to do a quick second coat while it's still curing. It will not forgive you like a Citadel colour would. There are some streaks in that, but as I said, I might apply a second coat. But yeah, that's kind of what you need to do, really. So let me crack on. It's probably worth, because again, it does dry, and your brush loses its point, I find, as well. So you might want to quite just wash your bristles out as you're doing it. I mean, I've already seen that I've made slight mistakes going near the gold, so I will need to get the gold edge highlighting out again, just to neaten a couple of little points up. But it's always going to happen, especially when you've got a camera in front of your face. There we go. So that's a single coat of the metallic blue all done. I think it's covered really nicely. It's covered better than the test piece I did at the beginning of the video. I think I probably spread the coat on the test piece too thin. But yeah, it's not perfect. There are a couple of streaky sections on the shoulder pad, which I will need to correct. But yeah, other than that, I'm pretty happy with how he's turned out. So let me quickly address those streaky sections. So with a second coat of this paint, you cannot just paint a section of it. You have to cover the whole of the part you're painting. You will see where the second layer sort of starts and finishes. So with this, because I'm covering the shoulder pad, I want to go over all of it to give a nice smooth finish. Otherwise, yeah, you see kind of like a raised area where the end of one coat starts and the other begins. So something like that. That's covered that. Sometimes it's the sides of the legs that I've noticed doesn't cover nicely, and you get little streaks in it. By and large, the scale of the Space Marine works well for this paint, because the areas that you're painting are pretty small. Each section is pretty small, so the paint has a chance to stay wet as you cover the whole thing. I have painted larger models with this paint, regrettably, like dreadnoughts, and it doesn't work very well. You have to thin this down and do lots and lots of little coats, and the problem with that is you end up getting brush marks. So I painted a couple of Rubik dreadnoughts with this paint. I wasn't particularly happy with the finish. It's fine from a distance, but I did need to get some wet and dry sandpaper on some of the flatter areas to neaten it off, and then get some gloss varnish over the top to bring back the shine. So if I'm honest, if I was painting something like a tank or a dreadnought again, I wouldn't use this. Actually, what I have done with my Thousand Suns tanks is I've bought a can of metallic spray paint and covered it that way, which is, I mean, that's a separate video if I ever do it. So yeah, that's the metallic blue. There's one last tip that I want to kind of bolt on to the end of this video, and it's about applying shading. Now, there's a bit of work involved using this paint, but the benefit of it is you don't have to go and edge highlight everything. I think the final product is decent as it is. When I first did it, I kind of felt cheating a little bit because I haven't gone around and edge highlighted all the blue and whatnot. But nevertheless, again, I don't think the finished product is any worse for it. But if you do want to apply some sort of depth to, say, the fingers, the thing I found worked pretty well is Talassar blue, the contrast paint. So what you can do with this, don't spill it, is you can apply this into the digits, say.
And it's probably not even going to be picked up by the camera, but it does provide some limited shading to some of the bits and pieces like this.
Personally, I've never gone and like shaded the whole of a flat area with this. What it does do though is it will matte the finish off, right? So the Tamiya paint dries quite glossy, as you can see. This contrast paint will matte it off slightly. So in the cases where I have used this contrast over top, I do then go and apply a layer of Ardcoat over the top just to bring that shine back. So yeah, that's the technique, or what I've learnt using the Tamiya Metallic Blue. I hope you've enjoyed this video. I am going to continue doing a little bit of Thousand Suns content for the foreseeable. I've got a video coming up about flames. I also want to document my technique for painting Magnus the Red skin tone, because that was a stumbling block for me personally for a while. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you have, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel, because it really does help me out, and I will see you in the next one.